Anurag. Pleasure to be here. I think the past 6 months have been a roller coaster. That explains it all. I think there have been ups and downs. The G forces have increased and decreased. And all of them have been related to the surge in the pandemic and the surge in the infodemic. I think our anxieties have by far, well, gotten the worst of us. So that's been, in a summary, the past 6 months. We all, as of now, understand the challenges that COVID poses. COVID is a small virus, but the pandemonium it has caused is something that we are reeling under. It has impacted every aspect of our life, personal, social, and professional. So, for the purpose of this discussion, I'll maybe limit my pointers to the professional space. Return to work for a lot of us is a misnomer because we've been working from home, right? So we're not returning to work anyway. I mean, I was corrected by a colleague out of US, but I used this expression accidentally, and I said, "So what are your return to work strategies?" He said, "I have been working from home. It's my return to office strategy that I want to talk about." Of course, I stood corrected, and I would like to bring that connotation here as well. That it's, of course, return to offices and operations, which we need to look at structurally. Now, the many influences, India currently is not in a good shape, predominantly because the pandemic is raging faster than ever. And while the cases are increasing in the community, a lot of industries are compelled and feel compelled to bring people to work. And that's why that is work in offices, that is out of their homes and so on and so forth. So this combination is not the ideal combination. However, India is not the only country facing it. We are seeing the second wave come up in Europe, which is, of course, as damaging, if not more, as the first wave was in terms of its disruptions. Return to operations or return to offices, it's got to be a structured approach. We ask ourselves three questions when we talk about return to operations. We said, why do we want to come back? When do we want to come back? And how do we want to come back? Now, given the current scenario, the medium-term future, we don't know what the long-term has in store. A lot of predictions have been made, but I wouldn't want to go to the long-term, which is maybe 3 to 5 years hence. The medium-term, let's look at the next 24 months. We will have a variable population working from home and from offices. So this percentage will shift depending upon which part of the country our colleagues are in, our offices are in, and what is the risk there. And hence, the return to operations strategy has to embrace this skew or this evolving percentage of work from home and work from offices. However, the return to operations has to be very well thought out. Why is an industrial, so to say, question? There is an organizational question. It pertains to the risk appetite that organizations have. The only people who can answer this question is, of course, organizations with the help of experts. A lot of companies on one end of the scale are saying, we're not coming back to offices till about June 2021. We've seen those declarations being made in the public. And that's fine because their businesses are not impacted, because virtual working does not impact their businesses. On the other hand, we have the manufacturing sector, we have the services industry, where you cannot do regular routine business without being in offices. Okay, so the two ends of the scale, organizations have to find the middle path. And that's where the answer to the question why is very subjective to a particular industry vertical, and within that, to a particular organization basis their exposure. If the decision is made, of course, to bring a certain percentage of people back in offices, then comes the question, why? How? I'm shifting to the last question, because how we want to bring them back to work is the nuts and bolts of things. All responsible organizations already have a plan in place. It's been a while, and we've all learned from each other, we've taken experts' help, and we've designed a plan. What is important today is to make sure that those various modules of return to operations in the how element, the nuts and bolts of things, disinfection, sanitization, screening, testing, and all. So all those fancy things have to be kept updated, because the pandemic and the nature of the virus is evolving. Well, the nature is the same. Our understanding of the virus's nature is evolving. With the vaccines being at a particular time frame and so on and so forth. So the how element comes there, which is the nuts and bolts of things. An act of will can get you started, but it's a maintenance that is important. Now, the last question, which is actually the most pertinent one, is when do you pull that trigger? When do you start coming to operations, and when do you scale up the mobilization plan? Now, that is a very difficult question to answer at this stage, because if you look at India is growing at a very rapid pace. And for India to peak in terms of the first wave and then drop, it's going to be multiple months. But if you look at individual cities and states, the trends are variable. So one must look at India as many countries within a country, and that will help put a method to this madness as well, at least helping you answer the question when. The flexibility in your plans will need, of course, to be visible. Just to share the crux of the matter, health and wellness strategies in organizational relevance will need to be reimagined. We were anyway struggling with mental health issues before COVID came in. Everybody speaks about mental health, but when we do the soul searching, we don't really know what we are trying to achieve as initiatives. A lot of great initiatives and work is being done by almost every organization and the mental health industry. However, when you start measuring the outcomes, and this question is actually very good because you're talking about outcomes and not just process, right? Now, every initiative has two measuring yardsticks, either a process-based metric or an outcome-based metric. And I put it in the context of a health and wellness, so to say, vision and initiative. A process-based metric would be to capture how many people came for a very good session. Could be on a psychological resilience webinar done by a leading expert in the world. How many people came to that session is a process-based metric. We've been tracking that for an eternity. And we are measuring our success and of engagement basis the number of people who joined. But how many truly benefited from that session? How many had a happiness index go up? How many deferred a depression? How many had a measured increase in productivity? See, these are the gray zones, and these are, within the scientific parlance, unmeasurable or have been unmeasurable so far. And I think moving forwards, this is an area that will need a lot of, I hate to use the word engineering in a medical context, but this will definitely need to be re-engineered. The metrics, the definition of those, We've got to start with the lowest hanging fruits. And what are the lowest hanging fruits? The non-communicable diseases. They haven't gone anywhere. We are still allowed to have high blood sugar levels despite COVID being around, yeah? I mean, those who have diabetes, that is. So the point that I'm trying to make is that the existing problems still remain, and COVID has come in and hit us hard and added to our strain, that is the stress levels. So in summary, what I'm trying to say is that a balanced approach is definitely important. Focus on physical and mental health is very, very important because they're so interlinked. I mean, the compelled potato couches that we've become, just because, I'll cite a small story. Right in the beginning of the lockdown, one of my colleagues went out for a run only to be chased by a cop with a stick so that he's pushed back into his building. Guess what? This guy has gained 7 kgs ever since. Now, the point of the matter is that we've been compelled to be physically, sedentary and mentally burn out. So that's the balance we got to strike. Now, strategies have to look at that. But you used a very important word, right up front, the compassion. From an organizational perspective, there are multiple things that need to be done. But at the heart of it all is a culture, an organizational culture. Now, COVID is or has been a geological event. It's no different from an earthquake. It has moved things in our approach to work and life, right? Now, these are the moments that also influence organizational cultures, both positively and negatively. I think one has to be open to the fact and take this as an opportunity to enhance that considerate part of the culture, the compassion in the culture. I can see very clearly, and I'm supporting, and we as a group, as International SOS, are supporting a lot of Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies as their medical advisors in their fight with COVID, right? And we are seeing most organizations who have that considerate culture, more visible considerate culture, are happier. They're not just worried about the employee productivity today, they're also conscious that the productivity is not a challenge. My consideration is for the employee not to burn out. So what I'm saying is we learn from each other. There is no playbook, there is no textbook, if I may, or a big 2,000-page guidance book which tells you what to do on which day for what problem. We are writing a book as we walk along. And that's where I highly appreciate all you're talking about, that playbook that you spoke about, and these experiences that we are collecting together. Because we've got to pick up the best amongst each other, and then, of course, implement that at our workplaces and, of course, in our employees' lives. So that would be my mixed answer, not a crisp one, but I hope that works. Change is going to be the constant. I believe while the plans are going to be where they are, everybody aspiring to put more focus on employee safety, and rightfully so. Gain employee trust. I'm reading the questions and they're so relevant. While staying relevant from a business standpoint, right? So this balance will continue to shift. In challenging geographies like India, where the infection is just getting a strong hold, and to your earlier point, Paul, all predictive modelings have fallen flat on their faces because garbage in, garbage out, they're all dependent on only numbers, only data, and that's not something that we as a subcontinent are very strong in, right? So the future, well, resilience will truly be tested. We thought we'll all get into Diwali and wear the clothes that we like for our Diwali get-togethers in offices. Well, guess what? We are now looking at maybe doing that in next Diwali. To your earlier point about collaboration and celebration in the workplaces being re-tagged as. So again, resilience will be tested. I think the mental health, I'm going to focus on the health aspect of it. Awareness on the mental health issues is rising, and I think we should fuel that fire. You cannot solve a problem if you don't know of its existence. You cannot implement a change if you don't know what the magnitude of the problem is, and that's where I think the mental health issues are at. I firmly believe a lot of measuring needs to be done on the mental health problems and workaround, so that you can efficiently target them. I firmly believe that this COVID era will teach us how to measure the problem, and of course we will need to implement those health and wellness changes to continue solving the problems in the future as well. Well, that's a great question, and I think that's the reality of our industries. While IT companies, most of them, and others who can afford working, will innovate alternative means of staying relevant. Manufacturing sector itself will either pivot or perish. That's the expression that we see. The answer to the question, how do we get safely back to work, is going to be very relevant for the manufacturing industry. The principles of the various modules of return to operation will remain the same, but the application will change from one manufacturing unit to another, from one, for example, automotive will not do exactly what FMCG does. Why? Because the engagement, the indulgence of the human element will be variable, and hence these customizations to the return to operations protocols will definitely need to be considered by them. A point that so again, before I go there, the answer to the question when is irrelevant for manufacturing sector, because guess what? Most of the manufacturing sector has been working through the pandemic. They never actually went back to offices. Of course, went back to homes, that is. The working percentage reduced and increased, and depending upon the local government regulations. However, these are our colleagues in the manufacturing industry which continue to brave the storm. They also had many disruptions, and that's where the equation is. How do you manage risk from a doctor, from a very non-technical? I'm not a risk manager, but these are very humble thoughts. There are only two ways to manage risk, right? One is to take it away. Most of us did that by not exposing our employees on the company time. In the personal spaces, they choose to get exposed, and that's fine. But on the company's time, you don't expose them on company's road. However, if you can't take the risk away, and that's where the manufacturing sector comes in, and many other compelled industries come in, then you got to mitigate the risk. And the answer to those questions of when and how are very relevant, because The why for them, why do we want to get back to work for them, is for relevance, right? So that is the answer. It's about when do you increase the mobilization and how do you make the workplace safe. A lot of leading organizations are endeavoring to be able to go on to a town hall, the senior most leader of an organization to go on a town hall and say with confidence that, guys, your workplace is as safe, if not safer, than your home. For you to have that confidence in ticking that box of saying that you haven't just done it on paper, but also on ground, is a lot to go by. And that's what the manufacturing sector will need to focus on, and just to make it sustainable. Minimize disruptions, follow diligence. To heed to the signs, not only what we see in the community on the raging pandemic, but also the perception. I really like the expression compassion or compassion quotient that Paul, you mentioned. And that will need to be considered as well when we start inviting people to offices. So again, it's not just management of risk, but also its perception. And that's where I think the mental health equation comes in, both reactive and proactive. Just one last parting comment is 80% of our fight, especially considering what COVID is and how we fight it, is going to be behaviorally led. 20% is what we've spoken about. You do the how element or nuts and bolts, you set it up. You set up processes, you set up infrastructure, but then it's going to be people who use it, people who comply with the processes, and hence it's the behaviors that will need to be nudged. In our return to operations strategy, in our return or redefining new normal strategy, it's going to be the behavioral nudging that will need to be a very integral part of your organization's plans.